Hi, this is Dr. Corinne Devin, board certified orthodontist, naval officer, commander in the United States Navy, and international pageant queen. And today you're going to hear about the challenges of orthodontics for our military members and their families as they navigate getting treatment both stateside and overseas.
OrthoMarketing.com, 360-degree digital marketing solutions for your practice.
Well, hello, everybody in podcast land. This is Dean Steinman, president of Ortho Marketing, and we are back with another podcast for you. Hope everybody is staying warm, that are in the parts of the world that it's a little cold in the wintertime, and if you are in the warmth, enjoy. We're all jealous of you. Hope everybody is safe and sound in this crazy times, and guys, remember again, use your head. Be safe, and make sure that you take precautions. So real excited today to have back with me a very special guest. She's been with us before, and real great person as far as getting to know her, look at her background. Besides being an orthodontist, the only orthodontist I've ever met who was also a beauty queen and as well as a commander in the United States Navy. I have Dr. Corinne Devin here. How are you today, Dr. Devin?
I am doing well. Ohio gozaimasu. Good morning from an early Japan.
Well, welcome, and I'm so happy to have you back. We've spoken before, and just people who haven't heard before, I'd love for you just to give us a little overview of your story. It's a great journey that you've been through. As I said, I've never had a beauty queen on with us before. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey as far as how you became an orthodontist, and then how you became a commander in the Navy, and then as well as a world-renowned advocate for women, as far as a speaker, and as far as being Dr. Corinne Devin. So go from there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the warm and very honored introduction. So I became a naval officer by drinking the Kool-Aid, you could say. My father was a Navy dentist. He served for 20 years. So I grew up on military bases and was a military brat, which is known for as a military child, and then decided one day I would go to dental school and have the military pay for it. So it's a great scholarship, and I'm happy to speak to anyone who would like to explore that for the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. And then upon entering the Navy, I did a 1-year AGD and was constantly told I had the personality of an orthodontist. And I wasn't quite sure what that meant because I never had braces. But before I know it, I'm on deployment in Iraq. I'm wiring guys' jaws shut, and I'm flying into residency. And upon returning from deployment, I was accepted into the military's orthodontic residency program that is in San Antonio, Texas at Lackland Air Force Base. And during my journey of becoming a dentist and now an orthodontist, one of my colleagues was watching the Miss USA pageant, and she was saying I should think about entering because the second runner-up that year was a dental student. And before I had a chance to respond, one of my classmates in the class said, Corinne, you can never do it. And I just turned around and told him to watch me, and the rest was history. So one day I turned into a lifelong hobby that has not only made me a better orthodontist, but a better speaker and a better naval officer. And just a quick thing for your audience to know, I'm in the process of publishing a book. It is at the Pentagon right now being reviewed. When you are a military officer for the Navy, anything you do, publication has to go through the proper checks. And so I'm excited for 2022 to release that once I get the final approval.
So let's go. Why don't you give us a little bit of a sneak peek? What's the book about?
The book is about my journey from growing up into the military to drinking the Kool-Aid, and then some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. You know, if you told my 8-year-old girl self that I would deploy to the same part of the world my dad would, and would take what people would call me four eyes and picked on me because I was small, or the chiefs who told me that I would never climb the ranks of military leadership, you're going to see how I overcome that and the lessons I learned along the way. And that is also a sneak peek into my keynote speech that I'm going to be doing for the American Association of Orthodontists. I leave on Wednesday. So in a week, you'll be hearing me speak at the first live conference in 2 years. So I'm incredibly honored and excited to share that, since the demographics of our orthodontics are changing, not only the patients we treat, but how we treat them, as well as the orthodontists who are entering the field. So yeah, I'm very excited.
It's incredible that, the journey you've been through, and, I lift my cap to you of the things that you've accomplished and on your horizon there. Incredible. So I want to talk a little bit today about military family specifically embraces. For those of you who are listening that practice in military base areas, I'm sure you see a lot of patients come through that are transient, that come and go. And let's talk a little bit about a patient's journey and how an orthodontist has to adapt their practice to somebody that already started with somebody else. I don't like to have to fix people's websites and marketing because because it was also somebody's passion and I had to come in and do that. So let's first start off. What's the first thing that you do when somebody who is already in treatment with somebody else would come to you because they're new to into the community and they need somebody to keep an eye on things, make sure that if they're in Invisalign, making sure that their process is in the right place and they're even the right aligners coming in. If they're in traditional braces, make sure that they're using the right information and they're being compliant there. So, what's the first thing that a orthodontist should think about or look at when looking at somebody else's work as a new patient is now in their chair?
So you can take it from two different approaches. I'm assuming you're talking about a civilian orthodontist that has a military patient come into their practice.
Correct, right. We're going to talk exactly. We're going to talk about not somebody in the military, but somebody in the military area, somebody in Norfolk, Virginia, somebody in San Diego, California, whatever. Somebody in West Point, New York, or Annapolis, or what have you. That somebody is real. It's not in the military per se, but in the military area, and now family moves in and they might not live on base. They might live in the area just surrounding it. So they don't want to go on base. So now they're going to come to your practice and they're already in treatment, adult or kid. And so what's the first thing that you would suggest for them to do since they're already in it?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things that I will just caveat just to let your audience know is that military orthodontists stateside have a different mission than military orthodontists overseas. So for starters, there's only 18 orthodontists in the Navy in the entire world. That's it. There's only 18 of us. And in the Army and the Air Force, there's a little bit more, about 28, 32. And their numbers may adjust a little bit because I'm not in their community, but I do work with their community. So our mission...
under 50 orthodontists throughout the whole entire armed forces, treating thousands of people in...
Well, we treat as many people as we can. We treat as many people can. So if one of the questions I get from a civilian orthodontist is, hey, Corinne, I have this active duty member who came in my chair. Because let's be honest, there's not very many of us. There's a huge need. And so we can't treat everyone. In stateside, we only will treat active duty. We will not treat the dependents, the children, or the spouse of a military family. So let's say they come out to town to your practice. One of the first things I would find out is how long they're in that area. Very often, military families are in the area or members are in the area for 2 to 3 years. And as we all know, orthodontics for an adult comprehensive case could take 24 to 28 months. Now, that's a large generalization depending on someone's severity and complexity and their expectation, surgery, not surgery, extractions, not extractions, if they're growing, not growing. So again, I'm just kind of giving kind of a blanket statement when I say that. And what I would tell a civilian orthodontist who's treating a military family is, with the children, they do get a benefit through TRICARE. And that TRICARE is about $1,750, $1,800 for someone in the network. And that's a one-time benefit. So if someone's with you for only a year and they're going to leave, it's something that I've always educated my parents and patients that I see on a base here in Japan, that once you've used that benefit once, you don't get to use it again. It goes away. And the common thing that I see, what happens is that people will start treatment knowing when they're going to leave the area, which is a big, big no-no in the military. As orthodontists, we want to start and finish our cases. And as a military orthodontist, very often I start and finish cases, but not usually the same ones. So in a civilian setting, that would be the first thing I would ask is how long are you here? Yes, I understand certain things are time sensitive, especially when it comes to a child's growth. But letting people know that up front, so that way there's no surprises. Now, something that we do in the military is, let's say you're supposed to be somewhere for 3 years, and a year into your tour, you're seeing a civilian orthodontist, and all of a sudden you're in San Diego and you find out that you are coming to Japan. Well, what I always encourage the members to do, the service member, is, obviously are assigned a sponsor, someone who's in Japan who's going to give them kind of the lay of the land. But I give out my contact information everywhere. So people can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And granted, I'm outside of Hiroshima. I'm one of many orthodontists in Japan in the military. And we have that patient, when they come here, we get a copy of their orders. We get a copy. And I love when orthodontists, the civilian orthodontists, can give me their transfer form, a copy of the financials showing there's no unpaid balance, and also making sure that I can see what prescription they are in. Because in the military, we don't really do Invisalign. We're just starting to get in clear aligner treatment. We use a lot of twin brackets. And so when patients come to me, if they're using, let's say, Damon or again, I'm just making this up. There could be, obviously, there's thousands of brackets and thousands of different types of prescriptions. Sometimes, very often as a military orthodontist, I have to take that off and put on something new, because if they have something that breaks, I don't have access to that supply. So a civilian orthodontist, if they can give them extra or give them the brackets they weren't able to put on, and the patient is very good and diligent bringing that to me, that helps me out. But that is something I would ask for them to keep in mind, because very often service members may not be as front, or I would ask, they may not know those answers. Another big thing I would tell civilian orthodontist, is, ask the patient, get to know them, obviously, ask them what they do. If a patient is going on a ship or they are operational, they're not going to be able to come see you. If they're in Iraq or Afghanistan for 8 months, they're not going to be able to come in for their orthodontic adjustments, nor are they going to have an orthodontist who's going to be equipped to take care of emergencies. There's going to be a general dentist with very, very limited knowledge and a limited amount of supplies. How do I know this? Because I was a general dentist at one point deployed in Iraq. And if people came in with a broken bonded retainer, all I could do is take it out, and that would be it, because I didn't have a lab to make them clear aligners. And a very common thing I see happening, and again, I don't blame the orthodontist, but again, we want to do what's best for our patients. We want to look out for our patients. If a patient's going on a ship where they're deploying, don't put braces on them. You are not helping them. No one dies from crooked teeth. And that is one of the hard things. I know people don't like that because maybe the patient wants it, the orthodontist sees a benefit, but you have to think down the road, like, what could happen if you can't see your patient for 6 to 8 months? Okay. What could happen? A lot of things could happen. Maybe good, maybe not. But I see very often patients who get clear aligners, they go on a ship because they can't see them. And especially since we're wearing masks, people don't see anything that you're wearing. And then something goes right, where they lose it, it breaks. And the labs on the ship, not every ship has a dentist. And a lot of the labs on the ship could maybe make an S6 aligner, but it's never going to be the same quality. It's not going to have the prescriptions built in. It's not going to have anything that you'd see even with clear aligner treatment. So I hope that gives a little bit of background information.
It sure does. Now let's flip it around. Somebody that is overseas and now coming back stateside. All right, so they go and they actually come in, and let's just walk me through the process. So as far as payment goes, if they're in the military and say they start in Japan and they pay you,
we don't get any money. I'll keep this in. I don't get any money. That's why people love military orthodontists. We're free. We are a perk. We are paid by the taxpayer dollar. So everyone wants to see us.
So it's covered. So now they come to the States, and now they see a civilian practice. Well, they're not going to work for free.
No.
So they have to now, since they got the first set for free, they don't have to double dip.
Correct.
Basically, they don't have to pay twice.
So the situation's a little different. If it's a military member who's going back stateside and they're one of my patients, what I try to do is I have a list of where every orthodontist, Army, Air Force, Navy, Public Health Service is in the United States. And if they're going to an area like, for example, San Diego, I have a couple colleagues who are there. But one of the consents that I have my patients sign is that the Navy nor any other federal agency is responsible for the finances of that. So if my colleague in San Diego is slammed where they cannot take on any of patients, then they will have to go outside. Same thing with children or spouses. Anyone who's non-military will automatically go to a civilian orthodontist. So what I do, and what a lot of my colleagues do, is we give a copy of a record to the patient. We tell them to put it in their carry-on. I send a digital copy and a hard copy with the patient with a transfer note. And then I put all my contact information. So I know some of my U.S. orthodontists freak out when they see a +8180 123-567 number from Japan. So I actually have a dedicated Skype number. It's a California number. And I have my email address. I put all my contact information. And I do that because I always appreciate when orthodontists reach out to me and answer my questions on a case. I never want to make any assumptions. I mean, how many times have we had transfer cases walk in where half the brackets are broken, the oral hygiene's a mess, the patient doesn't have any information, and you're thinking, who was this orthodontist? What did he or she do? When really, we all know we're only getting like one portion of the story.
Right.
So that's what I do. I provide a lot of that information. And I know a lot of my military colleagues do, because nothing makes us happier knowing that that continuation of care is happening, and that, yes, we're not there to be at the finish line when someone gets done with treatment, but we're good and happy knowing that they're in good hands. Now, for a civilian orthodontist, listen, you charge the fees that you normally charge. If you want to do any sort of discount, that is on you. I'm not going to tell you how to run your practice. But what I tell my patients is one of the most common misnomers people feel is that are not an orthodontist, who are, in the military, is they're like, okay, doc, well, I saw you for a year, and let's say orthodontist was $6,000-$7,000, so it should only be $3,000. When I go to the next orthodontist, I'm like, it doesn't work that way. You're not paying for the brackets, you're paying for the expertise. And they may use a different system. Like me putting a Damon bracket with a twin 3M bracket, is it going to work? Maybe, and it's the same prescription, maybe 22 slot. But guess what? It's like me putting a Honda oil filter into Mercedes. Is it going to work? Yes. Is it going to be as efficient? No way. We're going to probably burn twice as much gas. The car may not work as well, and we might cause more problems down the road. So that's how I sell it to my patients. And I'm very, very upfront. I give a lot of communication. I can't speak for every practice, but I can just tell you that's what my colleagues do. Another thing that we also have available to us that I want to make sure that your civilian orthodontist knows is we have what are called consultants. So for example, in Japan, I am the consultant that I work with another person who's called the TRICARE dental officer. So TRICARE is the main insurance carrier for a lot of our military. And what they do is any patient who goes to a civilian orthodontic office, because again, I can't say yes to everyone who comes to me, even in Japan. So this is people going out in the economy, going to Singapore, I've seen cases Korea, and then Japan. I don't think we have anyone in China right now. We see what they do, and then the orthodontist gives us a diagnosis, a treatment plan, a copy of the records, and then they just consult with us to say, hey, does this sound good? Because we also want to make sure that people are not getting the runaround or getting talked into something they don't understand. That's a benefit we extend to our overseas military members going to civilian practice. But stateside, right, there isn't a lot. I always encourage people to see an orthodontist. If you don't like what they have to say, get a second opinion, go to the local society. We as military orthodontists, we can't tell you who to go officially. I can just say, hey, this was my kid. Here's some people, but I'm speaking in Dr. Devin capacity, not as a representative of the DoD when I say those things.
Right. What percentage of people who start orthodontics in the military are doing this for cosmetic versus health reasons?
That's tricky. So the military, I would say cosmetic, majority of them want it for cosmetic, but I would say the cases that get accepted are mostly cases where there is a corrective jaw surgery component or a full mouth rehab component. So overseas, my focus is a lot of treating either adults where their discrepancy index, if you're familiar with that in orthodontics, is at least a 20 or higher. So very much more difficult. So this is not just some minor crowding. Or I'm treating a child where, if we don't get headgear on them, the possibilities of them needing surgery and extractions is much higher down the road. So it's more of like, we're looking at more of a functional, and yes, there's a cosmetic perk that comes with it. We do teaching cases that varies. I do quite a few teaching cases in my practice. So there is a bit of a cosmetic component because I'm working with a general dentist and helping them do a case that's much simpler. And obviously that's usually for something with lower crowding, some spacing. So that would be some cosmetic, but it isn't the main focus of our military orthodontic practices.
So people that are doing this for health purposes, is this almost like a triage type of thing? You do what you can, because you mentioned before that you might be limited in your lab and as far as materials and what have you. So once somebody starts and then they leave overseas, they come back stateside, what happens as far as the next steps? Do people have to start over? Can they finish what you started already?
It depends.
Let's not talk about cosmetics. Let's talk about just for breathing purposes or overcrowding or what have you.
So, if they're having a breathing issue, they're probably going to be seeing other specialists. And if their health
Okay.
issues are much bigger than just a dental crowding issue, they may
Right.
be potentially med boarded out of the Navy. I mean, I know that sounds really harsh, but I am being very, very honest. The military looks at orthodontists as an area they can cut and not, like I said, 18 out of a population of 350,000 for the Marines and the Navy. So that right there should speak volumes of how we're looked at. We back in the States, if they are a surgery component, if someone needs corrective jaw surgery but they're going to a ship, the braces come off, the braces will stop. If they're having breathing issues, they'll see a specialist. But then if you cannot be deployable in the military as a service member, this is different if you were a child or a spouse that's a dependent in the military. They're going to be looking at alternative means of either finding a place that you can still be functional military or having you get out of the military. I know that sounds really harsh, but we as service members, we have to be ready to deploy at any moment. I mean, I may be an orthodontist, but I've moved 7 times in the middle of the pandemic. I've deployed to Iraq, and I'm on my 4th overseas deployment tour. So again, that is just the reality for our service members. So again, I challenge your civilian orthodontist. If they have questions, many of my colleagues are in these Facebook groups. Ask these questions. I mean, I love when a civilian orthodontist saved a patient money, or at least was like, hey, Corinne, I want to extract teeth on this patient. She has so much credit. I know it'll help her with her breathing, but she's leaving to go to a ship in 6 months. And I said, hey, this is what's going to happen. She's going to leave to go to ship, and they're going to make her take off her braces. Because that's what's going to happen. So, like explain, think about that. And it's hard. There's a lot of ethical things that do come up, a lot of ethical issues that'll come up for us for that reason.
So if somebody is leaving Japan, they're moving to San Diego, would they come to you and say, Dr. Devin, who would you recommend I go see when I go back to the States, or would they just like Google it, or what's typical procedure SOP as far as what's going on to take next steps?
So if they're active duty, then I will reach out to the military orthodontists in the area to see if they can take them. If they can, great. And again, I forward them a copy of the records, digital, and also give a hard copy to the patient. If they can't take them, or it's a child or a spouse who is not in the military, they will go to a civilian office, and I legally can't tell them where to go. I just say, I would look up, I would go to San Diego Orthodontic Society. I would go to braces.org and find an orthodontist in the area, and whoever you find, yes, I sent you a copy via email, but if they need more information, here's my card. I pay for my own business cards in the military, and I give it to my patient and tell them put it in their wallet and have them reach out. And then I also tell them, be prepared to pay some fees. Do not group on like when it comes to your face, like ask around. And that's what I usually recommend. I don't recommend a general dentist, only because usually the cases that I'm treating and the complexity of the care requires an expertise of an orthodontist. I really do appreciate my general dentists who do some of the orthodontics, but in the military, we don't get easy. We get crazy, hard, scratch your head. How am I going to fit this together? So,
Interesting. So if you had to give one bit of advice to a orthodontist in a military community that is a civilian, what's the one thing that you suggest for them to do today to potentially get more patients, that are that are now coming back into the States? What's one thing that you suggest them to do, to welcome the military community to a civilian office, to let them know that military is welcome? Should they be on social media? Should they be, reaching out to a certain office? Like, what's the best way for them? Because at the end of the day, as a business owner, you want to increase your business. So this is kind of like, I guess, like a sales or marketing tip. What's one thing that you suggest somebody to do in Norfolk or San Diego or what have you to let people coming back know that we'd love to have you come to our office?
First off, I'm a big about relationships. I would tell them to reach out to the military orthodontists that are there, simply just to let them know that they are there, that they take military patients. Legally, I can't just say go to this person, but it's always nice to know who's in the area. I would say that would be number one. Number two is I would have them become part of TRICARE. I would have them be a network on TRICARE. And again, that is a business decision that I would do, but I would reach out to TRICARE and find out how they can get part of their network. That would be huge because as you know, insurance, the fees that insurance pay are very different if you're in network versus out of network. And then I would also volunteer your time at military events. So what I mean by that is, for example, in San Diego, they do a couple events where they are looking for dentists to always volunteer. So Veterans Village, Operation Stand Down. Yes, you are not doing orthodontics and it may not be a place for you to kind of advertise saying, oh, like, putting up signs and passing out flyers, but it's a great way to start to grow and build those relationships. Like, yeah, I have a soft spot for the military. I have a practice here at Orthodontics. I'm looking to find ways for me to really help because when it comes to transfer cases, nothing gives me more joy than taking care of the patients who unselfishly sacrifice themselves for the freedoms I enjoy. So maybe those would be just a few things you don't go. I will tell you, San Diego is very saturated with a ton of orthodontists. I know that from doing moonlighting myself. And so again, I had to sign a lot of documents saying that if any patients I didn't accept, I couldn't just send them directly to the practice I would work in. That would be a big no, get myself kicked out. But at the same time, my colleagues who are not in the military, who are orthodontists, they volunteer at these events. And when you do these events, they get a lot of publicity and people see you there, you get name associated. And not every person at the event is military. And again, it's a great way to get plugged into this community because then people feel that instant bond. They feel that instant trust. And that's, I think, word of the mouth, and it gets posted on social media. That's a great way for you to market yourself and your practice.
I agree. Great tip there. Great. So, if anybody is in a military general base area, that's some great things to do. I just did a podcast just last week on how to community involvement and how to take your practice to the next level, a part of the community, and just grassroots stuff. This is a great tip, from an expert. So, really appreciate it. And one last question for you, Corinne. If you had to give one bit advice to, because I know you're a very female empowerment and you have a great niche there. So, a female orthodontist who's just starting out or wants to take her practice to the next level, woman to woman, what one bit of advice would you give them to do today? Just from an overall business standpoint, overall orthodontic standpoint, overall woman standpoint, one bit of advice that you would give.
You don't have to give up who you are to be who you want to be. That would be the one thing I would tell them, because I feel as women, very often we feel like we have to give up parts of ourselves for something else. And yes, we have seasons where certain areas will take over, but being a naval officer, a pageant queen, and an orthodontist could not be more opposite at first glance, but there's skills I've learned that have benefited each other. So again, that is what I would tell your female orthodontist, that, yeah, you don't have to give up who you are to be who you want to be. And bringing that to your practice will make you unique and will make you relatable, thought-provoking, and engaging to anyone who walks into your practice.
Great bit of advice. Thank you so much. So, Corinne, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. I want to thank you for your service. Again, God bless you.
I hope to see you in Miami. And listen, you can salute me then, but we have to be outside because I'm not going to wear my cover indoors.
There you go. No worries. My pleasure. To buy a beer, drink, soda, water, coffee, whatever it is. My pleasure.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Guys, if any questions, if somebody wants to reach out to you or has a question or just wants to, get to know you, what's the best way for somebody to reach out to you?
Sure. Social media is a great way. So on Instagram, I'm Dr. Corinne Devin. That's DrCorinne. You can also find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So those are probably the easiest and fastest way to find me. And then also my email address is drcorindevin@gmail.com. And again, I am more than happy to answer any questions you have, whether you're in the military, you're not in the military, or from an orthodontist perspective where you're kind of dealing with a dilemma. Like I said, some of my colleagues who've reached out to me, we know each other from high school or from college, and they're like, oh, hey, you're an orthodontist. Like, what should I do here? And again, at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want to create beautiful smiles where we're changing lives. We're changing the world. And sometimes that's hard in the military because we have no control over our lives, and there's ways to navigate this. And that's what I do. I'm like a quarterback on a football team, but in the dental world. And I'm more than happy to share what I've learned with anyone who needs help.
There you go. And say as my favorite football player of all time is Navy quarterback Roger Staubach. So
Really?
yep, that's the
Well,
right.
we've
He
got
was
a good record of the Navy of beating Army, but my Army colleagues will hit me
yeah,
for saying
you
that.
know, Captain America. So he's the guy who got me into sports and football. Now I'm a Jets fan, so unfortunate for me. But Corinne, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks so much for your service. Thanks for this insight, guys. Follow her on social media. She's got some great Instagram stuff. She's real knowledgeable. She's great to listen to and real helpful. So, Corinne, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you soon. Thanks,
Sounds
everybody.
great. Thank
All right.
you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Orthomarketing.com. 360-degree digital marketing solutions for your practice.